Now, off court, it's been quite a week. Our run sheet here with news has been absolutely text heavy. First one is the implosion of the Dallas Mavericks, at least from a off the court level. Obviously, Luka Doncic extension hasn't been signed yet. We believe it will be signed. It's $200+ million. Who wouldn't sign that? And even if he isn't unhappy, the betting money says he'll sign it and then look to get out in a year or two. Tim Cato and Sam Amick from The Athletic, where our good friend Sherwood Strauss works. You catch that podcast a couple episodes ago. Started with a story there that was leaked from inside the Dallas Mavericks organization about Haralabos Vulgaris. We're going to call him Bob for spelling and pronunciation purposes. Pro has no chance pronouncing that. He was reportedly outed as a shadow GM type in the organization. I believe his role is, I don't even know what his exact title is, but it's analytic driven and advisor to the GM type role. But
an offensive coordinator, if you've read the article.
Offensive coordinator, there you go. But his voice has gotten louder and louder within the organization as far as worth, and people value his opinion, and Cuban can value whoever opinion he likes. He's the owner. But I think that's rubbed some people the wrong way, and there were issues about him having made calls to other teams about players, about trades, about whatnot. So the GM, Donnie Nelson, has been there 20 plus years. I don't think he liked that too much, calling other teams and hearing that, if that's the case. And I guess a few days after that, Donnie Nelson was fired. So I think we found who the leak was. If I was a betting man, I'd say Donnie Nelson leaked it to the media, and he's probably from his position was like, I'm not happy with this. I'm the GM. What the hell's going on? Why don't I have a say? Why are we listening to a guy that's not the GM? But on the flip side, Bob is highly valued for his analytical prowess. For those who don't know him, he's a former professional sports bettor, made a shitload of money betting on sports betting, nuances, and he saw, little deficiency. How would you word it? He saw little intricacies within sports betting on the way certain coaches coach games in garbage time, the rotations they made, which he studied it like religion and bet accordingly and made made a shitload of money.
Yeah.
And Mark Cuban's hired him. He's an all-in analytics guy and an absolute guru in that field. Works his nuts off as far as that goes. But so Cuban refuted the leak. Donnie Nelson gets fired. And then a couple of days after that, Rick Carlisle has resigned, which we'll get to a little bit later. But this is what you kind of see in organizations at times. I think Bob is probably a victim in a way of coming in fresh-faced to organization and having probably too much say too early, where a lot of the people that have been there for years are probably like, what the fuck's going on? Why are we listening to this guy when he hasn't been here that long? Why are we listening to this guy when my title is higher on the food chain than his? And that's, whether you think that's right or wrong by that person arguing that's one whole separate issue. But you were around, I was around in Dallas. I think Bob was with the Mavs as an unofficial advisor. It wasn't formally on their roster. I think the year I was there or leaving, he then got signed towards the end of that season when you were there. So how have you seen all that? It's been, for an NBA team to go through first a big leak of these sorts that doesn't look good on your owner and your GM and your coach, then the GM being fired and then the coach resigning all in a matter of days.
Yeah, it's a real busy week for sure. I mean, I don't think anybody knows what's going on. It's everybody's shell-shocked with, the whole week and what happened. But look, with Bob, because Bob's such a character in the sense that no one really knows him. Everybody just sort of, they read the name and they follow him on Twitter and social media and things. And, I was around him for my last year in Dallas, and he was officially with the club for the year and traveled with the team, was around, was in and out. I like Bob. Look, everyone has their sort of thing that they do. Everybody's got their opinions on the game. Bob's you think sports gambler, you think of like Jimmy the Greek, some fucking mafia guy, some 400-pound fucking mafia guy that sits at a fucking casino all day and smokes fucking Marlboros betting on games. It's not like that. He's analytically based. He had an analytics team when he was doing his gambling. He's got an analytics team behind him now, and he's got a big staff that has his model, and his model is one of the best in basketball for when I'm hurt. And on top of that, what I don't like about stats guys usually is they just go with their model. They never watch the game, and they live and die by their model. Now, he's very confident in his model. I don't really know much about it. We talked a little bit about it. I sort of have an understanding of how he sees the game a little bit. But what I really respected about the guy was we had like a 5-day trip in LA, and we're staying at Staples at LA Live, and that Ritz-Carlton and the Ritz-Carlton and the JW Marriott are sort of combined in the same hotel, and they have that big lobby, restaurant, bar area, lounge. So in 5 days, I probably was in and out of that lobby like 35 times, and probably 90% of the time I saw him crushing film. Watching film on top of his model stuff. Hey, look, I don't know, he might know what he's doing. He might not know what he's doing. But at least the guy not only did his model, but he studied the game as far as film, asked a lot of questions. He could talk hoop. Not the greatest of people person, but he wasn't like a total dick, but he wasn't, not the greatest of people person either. Now, on Donnie's side, I could see why if you're the GM of the team, you helped them win a championship. You drafted 2 of their cornerstone players in franchise history, and you had all this history within the town and the organization. Why you get a little pissed at this? Now, Bob's power, you could tell he was going to have some power in the future. I was only there 1 year. I don't really know what's going on, except for what I've heard from the people that I know around the league of what's been going on in the last couple of years. But the guy, obviously, Johnny Nelson, you're the GM, you run the team, you made all these moves, and you're a big part of the organization. You have a guy that's coming in, you're calling teams on trades, he's calling teams on trades. There is a power struggle, and it could be, and that's just human nature. And that's what people don't understand in these organizations. It's human nature. People are very territorial. The money and power of these titles and these positions are fucking ridiculous. The money they make and the money that's on the line and the power that's on the line. And with Bob's sake, he made all this money, so it may not be money oriented, but it might be power and ego oriented. With Donnie's deal, look, he's been there for all this time, and he probably feels as though he deserves to run the team. So I understand his frustration on it, but it's a power struggle, and just human nature is going to take over, and people are going to get pissed, and you're going to have these arguments. And look, that's not really sort of how most organizations are run. Usually you have one person in charge. You've got a bunch of people in on the decision-making process, but you have one person in charge. And when you have multiple voices, people get frustrated. And I think in NBA organizations, there's so much behind the scenes, people undercutting each other because the money is so much. Look, assistant coach back in the day was probably making 15, 20 years ago. Most of them were making the high side, probably $200,000, $250,000, $275,000. Now you're having assistants that make upwards of $1 million. Most of them, the head assistants make $650,000, $700,000. You've got GMs that are making $5 million, $3.5 to $5 million bucks. Some are making 10, most of which are probably making 5 or 6. So if you're like a player development coach making 70 and you want to get in front of the bench and make that 350 or 400 or more, then you're gonna do some you're gonna do some fucking shady shit to get to where you gotta go. And same thing with people in the front office. It's very competitive like that. I'm not saying that that's what happened in Dallas, but it's just very competitive. And, it's a nuclear arms race of who's going to get more of the owner's ear in most organizations. The coach, the GM, maybe an outside entity like a Bob. So all these people are chasing that deal to try to get that power to sort of extend their stay, make more money, more extensions. And if it's between you or me, I'm going to push you off the fucking cliff. That's just sort of how it happens. So I could sort of see how this thing gets out of whack. And now, look, you don't have a coach, you don't have a GM, and now you can start clean slate. You got to decide if Bob's going to be part of that or not, or Bob's got to decide if he wants to be a part of that or not. And then you got to now when you put the GM in charge and then you hire your coach, they got to be on the same page, and you got to communicate that. And I think in most organizations, you got to communicate to everybody on the organization. This is what you do, and I don't want you fucking doing anything else. This is what your role is. This is on the chart, on the org chart of the whole organization. Here's where you sit. Here are the people beneath you that you could fuck with, and the people on top of you who you can't fuck with. And you need to know that on a daily basis. And everybody's got to do their part and stay in their fucking lane. That's the problem in the NBA, Bogues. You know, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but like on the coaching and front office side, usually it's the lower level guys. They fucking get out of the box. They don't want to stay in their lane. They're always looking to do someone else's job. They're always looking to move up for the most part. In an organization that's successful, everybody's got to do their fucking job and everybody's got to stay in their lane. And now as the owner, you give that power to everybody, like who has the power and who doesn't. And I think everybody's got to be on the same page. I don't know what happened there in the last couple of years. I wasn't there and I wasn't in the building. But I think now you have everybody gone. You got to make those decisions going forward and everybody's going to be on the same page. And now you have another chance to start this thing over. And the most important part of this thing is they're in good shape roster-wise. They've got one of the best players in the league. They got a generational talent in Luka, who's going to definitely sign his $200 million extension. I don't give a fuck what anybody at ESPN says about, oh, he might go here, he might go there. Bullshit. You think he gives a fuck about getting in a little argument with Bob? Or that, you know, somebody got fired or his coach or his GM's not there? Yeah, he might get pissed. He's human nature. You know, he's a human being. I don't speak for Luka. I'm just saying generally. Most NBA players don't give a fuck about that all that much. As long as he doesn't hate the coach or hate the GM, he doesn't really care who the GM or coach is. You know, and that's a big part of it. And he's going to sign his extension. You know, they're going to hire a coach. They're going to hire a GM. It sucks that they're going through this. You know, I've worked with Donnie and Rick for a long time. Like, those guys were cornerstones of that organization, but they're gone now. And most NBA players, especially superstars, if you give them freedom to do what they need to do on the court, if the organization supports them, if they have a chance to win, and if they get a fat-ass fucking paycheck, they're fine. That's mostly what they care about. Now, some care about winning more than others, but those four things are huge factors. They don't care about what kind of weather the city's in. They care about those four factors. And like, that's in most NBA players. So their roster's good. They're a move away from getting to the conference finals next year. They've got their best player. They've got all their role players intact. Most of those players like each other. They're going to roll. They just need to hire a coach and a GM and they can go forward. But this whole thing, yeah, it's a shit show in the sense because, you know, it's a power struggle.
And that's exactly what it is. And that's my point.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as you get leaks from within the organization, whether Donnie's right or wrong in his, number one, you don't leak, in my opinion. That's loose, what is it? Loose lips sink ships. I think that's a bad thing to do, is to go to a friendly journalist of yours that you know and leak shit. Just address it directly. But full disclosure, I'm friends with Bob. I know him. I think he's a great guy. I don't think he's in this for the money. So maybe the power thing, you might be right. I don't think he's in it for the money because he's got more than enough money from Bitcoin and investments that he's made over the years from his sports betting. But I just don't like leaks, period. Like, if I'm in an organization like right now at the Sydney Kings, for instance, and there's someone leaking something, I treat that worse than making a big blunder in anything else, because I feel like you're jeopardizing the integrity of what we're building in the organization. If we can't have these meetings where we might go back and forth, you and I might cuss each other out and almost get to fisticuffs, right? I'd rather that than someone leaking to a newspaper, because once you cross that line, like you said, it just causes so many issues. And for those out there, this happens in every NBA franchise, from the team trainers, the physios, to the masseuses, to the scouts, to the ball boys. It's like, how can I move up and take the guy above me, that role that they're getting paid a little bit more and they got a better role? How do I kind of, when his back's turned, how do I take his role? And then how do I jump up from assistant GM to GM? That's all it is generally about. The organizations that don't tolerate it, there's probably a few in Miami and San Antonio. They'll get you straight out of there if they start feeling all that. And people just don't stay in their lane. And that's just the way it goes. And I'm not saying that's happened in this situation, but it happens a lot out there. And then the repercussions, at the end of the day, everyone's going to end up copping the shit sandwich, because now they're basically on clean slate. And that does lead us on to Rick Carlisle. Basically, I guess he's not a dumb man by any means. He's smart. He's very forward thinking as far as business wise, and he's coaching. He's the head of the coaches union. He's not a silly guy. I think he saw some writing on the wall to get the hell out of there. And I have a hunch that he might have had some inklings that there were some jobs. We joke around about him driving around Brooklyn Arena waiting for Milwaukee to lose that series so he could take over the Milwaukee job. Well, now we'll talk about Bud a little bit later, but it looks like Bud should hopefully hang on there going into the conference finals. But the Rick Carlisle thing was interesting because we've spoken about he hasn't been the most successful coach over the last 10 years, bar the championship, which was rumored to be Jason Kidd coaching for the most part. First round exit or worse the last 10 years. There are some job openings. I mean, Indiana's one that comes to mind. Does he make a reunion with Indiana? Milwaukee was the other one. Boston's out there. I don't think he goes to Boston, but he was a former player there. So if you're a smart betting man, he's probably got a half guarantee from someone, bro.
Yeah, I mean, obviously him and I are on each other's Christmas list by any stretch of the imagination, but he did a great job there. He helped win a championship. Didn't really have the team that he needed to win playoff games early on after the championship. No question about it. Like, he had no business winning any of those rounds. He got lucky a little bit in San Antonio where they pushed it to game 7, but it wasn't like he was favored in any of those series. So it's tough. Last year, Dwight Powell goes down with the Achilles right before the pandemic, and they were rolling. They probably would have been a top 4 or 5 seed that year for sure if that didn't happen, because the way they were playing with him and Porzingis, they played really well together. And then this year they had the COVID deal where they definitely would have been a top 4 seed, probably the 4 seed. And now you're talking about game 7 in Dallas. Well, in that series, you probably won it in LA, considering they never won any home games either in LA until the end. But like, they were real close. So, probably the writing was on the wall. I would have said they had a 70% chance of winning their first round next year based on how the team was, put together. I think they probably would, and what other teams in the league are going to do. I think they'll probably definitely win a playoff series next year. But he had 2 years left in his deal. If I had to guess, and this is only a guess, he didn't care about the whole he might get fired thing next year if he didn't make a playoff deal. He didn't care about that. He's got 2 years left. They love him in the town. If he would have done what he was supposed to do, he would get another extension and he's going forward. And that's what most coaches are thinking about. Like, how do I prolong my stay either here or somewhere else? Now, if he got fired next year, he would have got any job, like almost any job. He would have got most of the jobs that were out there and he would have had his pick. So he would have been in the same situation this year. My opinion, he probably asked about his future with the team. They probably weren't committing to anything. So they probably decided to go. And now he wants to align himself with a superstar. Look, I know he can go back to Indiana or maybe get the Celtics deal, but Milwaukee, and he's the head of the coach association. He's not going to politic for the job while someone else has a job. I'm saying if there was going to be a decision to be made on Bud, he probably thought that he'd have a really good chance, and they coveted him because they tried to get him out of his contract a couple of times when they had coaching openings in his tenure in Dallas. So he probably thought that he would get the job or have a really good chance of getting the job if they made a change. And then the other jobs, like Indiana or some other jobs, he could probably get if he wanted to. But I think that he probably look, if I'm not going to be long term there and they can't guarantee that, I might as well get out now. Have a chance for this Milwaukee thing.
Portland,
and if not Milwaukee, I can go, or Portland as well. He worked in Portland before as an assistant or, in some capacity assistant. I think he might have done some media out there too. So there's that. And then he could do Indiana.
Orlando's out there too, right?
Orlando's out there too, but Boston, I've heard they're going to hire. Yeah, I heard in Boston they're going to hire an African-American candidate, a young African-American assistant. So Charles Lee from Milwaukee, Jamal Mosley, Dallas, Chauncey Billups. If I heard Chauncey's going to get Portland, but if he doesn't, they'll probably cover him there.
New Orleans is out there as well.
New Orleans is out there as well, but they already had an old school coach, and it didn't work. I don't know if they're going to go 2 years in a row. Maybe they will, but Rick's going to get a job easy. But I think to me, he could have waited another year and still got his, whatever was out there. So to me, if I had to guess, you want to align yourself in Milwaukee, give yourself a chance of coaching a 2-time MVP in a team that's built to get to the finals. At least keep very close to that. And then you do Indiana. If you want a payday, you go to Washington, because they could probably pay you a shitload of money and you get to coach Westbrook and Beal and do what you got to do. But I don't think he's going to leave Dallas, which is, in my opinion, the best city in the NBA to live. with all the great stuff in the organization and the support from fans and things. I don't think he's going to leave Dallas with 2 years left to go to Indiana, to go to Washington, maybe to Boston because there's history there. But I think Milwaukee was the play. Maybe even New Orleans because at least there's Zion there. But I think Milwaukee's the play if there was going to be a change.
If he had 2 years guaranteed, he surely got half promise from someone, right?
Yeah, I would think that he knows information-wise if there's going to be a change, if Bud lost early in the playoffs, that if there was going to be a change, he was going to be the guy. I would guess. I have no information.
Yeah. But it's like, shit, you're not turning down 2 years of guaranteed money. I'm guessing he was on 7-8 million a year or something like that,
I would think so, yeah, for sure. But he definitely has something else.
Yeah.
And like I said, Washington would want him. Washington definitely would want him. Boston, if that's not true about the African American, it has to be an African American that they hire, or then if he's in play there, the owners would pay whatever he wants to get there. He's one of the better coaches in the league. He had history there. The media would love it. But I think from what I've heard that it might be that they're leaning in that direction.
Do you think I can get an interview for him for the Sydney Kings job? We've got a couple of $100K floating around, pro.
You probably need his own airplane. Probably, yeah. You probably has a lot of things you need to do. You'd have to rename Lawndale Ave to his name. There's a lot of things you have to do.
Get a crop duster plane and just furnish a few, whatever the wording is, throw some seeds on some crops.
I think you can put your assets in a different direction. I think he's going to have a few more zeros in his bank on his offer.
Do you think he'd take my call in an interview, though? That's a real question.
Possibly, Bogues. Why not? I'm not his agent. Call whoever's representing him. Yeah, for sure. He won't take mine, but he'll take yours.
Let's close out Dallas. So Dirk Nowitzki's been hired to help make decisions upon around the GM and coach hiring. His title is special advisor to Mark Cuban. So a good appointment there, a club legend. We knew he was going to be involved with the Mavs at some capacity. So he's going to be involved there. The other one is, do the Mavs promote a highly touted assistant, Jamal Mosley? Now, I know Jamal Mosley. He played for the Victoria Titans back in the day here when I was a young fella. And I was obviously with Dallas when he was there. He's now the assistant coach also with the Australian Boomers national team. So he's a big candidate to get a head coaching job soon in the NBA. Do you think he has a real chance to maybe take that reign in Dallas?
Oh, I think so too. I definitely think so. Just because he's going to be a head coach somewhere. Like, someone's going to hire him. He's very highly respected around the league as an assistant. He's definitely on the fast track to being a head coach. The question is, how much pressure is there to win next year in the playoffs? And if it's like, hey, look, if Luke is like, if he says, hey, I don't care if we win the playoffs or not, I like this team, I like the city, we're good to go, whatever, then Mose should be your coach. If you need that more experience,
and reportedly very close to Luka.
Yeah, he's like the closest guy to Luka on that staff in that organization. So I think that that's a huge factor. But if there is pressure, because Luka's not that type, Luka's not a superstar like most superstars in the NBA that force the organization to hire security, trainers, coach and staff. He doesn't have his boys in the staff. He doesn't do any of that. So he doesn't really care either way. He does care, but he doesn't care. So it's not like if you don't hire Jamal, he's going to leave. I think they need to win. And look, Jamal's going to be a coach. All these guys say, oh, he's not ready to be a head coach yet. Well, how does all these other fucking coaches, how do you think they became head coaches? Somebody just finally said, fuck, he might not be ready right now, but he's close. And he needs a couple years under his belt, but he's going to be fine. I think Jamal will be fine. But I think that I think 3 names would be for this job, and maybe more. But that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Jamal, I'm thinking Jason Kidd, and I'm thinking Terry Stotts. Terry Stotts is probably the most established guy on the list. People love him in Dallas. The organization loves him. Did a great job as an assistant
during the championship year, correct?
Yeah. Yep. He's done a great job as a head coach. Players love him. And I think he'll be really good there. But if there's no pressure to do it, and you have this young coach that you could develop into a championship level coach, why not hire him? And why not just not go through this stuff? I think the relationship with Luka is going to be huge. And I think that, that'll be steady. But I think that if I had to guess, it'll be a more experienced coach that gets the job if I had to gamble on it. But I think Jamal should get the job just because he's there. He's been there so long, and look, he's going to get a job somewhere, and he has the pieces. See, most assistants got to take a fucked up job,
Rebuild,
in those rebuilds. We talked about that. That's almost a suicide mission.
Orlando.
So
right
now.
Yeah.
Like I said, coaching is irrelevant for the most part in the NBA. If you have talent and the guy at least isn't going to have mutiny on his hands, like in Indiana, if that's not going to happen, anybody can coach these teams that are on staffs. As long as they're not fucking idiots, they're not assholes, and they know what they're doing. Now you've got talent. You got an MVP candidate, and you got all these great people that play there and work there. I would just say, fuck it. Let's roll the dice with the guy. If you have to, hire a more experienced staff under him so he could just sort of, help him. But I think Jamal's going to be a fine coach. I would hire him. But my guess is they'll go a little more experienced and they'll go with the Terry Stotts. Unless Lucas says, hey, this is what. Now, I guarantee Jason Kidd will be mentioned and go deep. And
well, I mean, he coached him to a finals win 10 years ago, bro. So he might get that job.
No?
No? Okay.